You are listening to Viewpoints from Place Cloud. Cultural researchers tell stories of places from around the world. For the full multimedia experience and to support the creators you enjoy, visit placecloud.io.
Brockwell Park has served as a public gathering place in South London since the 1890s. It has hosted countless public events and served as a site for numerous festivals. I'm going to be speaking to you about one of those today. Rock Against Racism's second Carnival Against the Nazis, which took place in September of 1978. The park where you are now stands on the southern edge of Brixton, which you likely know is the historic heart of Black London. By the 1970s, the area suffered from high levels of unemployment, poverty, and the problems associated with those things. It became shorthand in the press for racialized urban problems, so much so that even in cases of crime outside of Brixton, it was dragged into the discussion by journalists attempting to contextualize the crime. By the 1970s, Brixton was also ground zero of the tension between young Black men and the Metropolitan Police. This climate in Brixton made it a fitting venue for Rock Against Racism, or RAR as I may refer to them in the future, second major concert in the summer of 1978. To hear more about RAR's birth and its first major music festival, please listen to the Placecast I have set in Victoria Park, where the first carnival took place. After 80,000 people attended the concert in Victoria Park, the RAR and Anti-Nazi League organizers had hoped to bring 100,000 to Brockwell Park. The group exceeded all expectations and put on a South London show with 150,000 attendees. At this concert, top reggae group ASWAD paired with prog rocker Elvis Costello to headline alongside Stiff Little Fingers, a Belfast punk group whose music was forged in the sectarian violence of the Troubles. Music venues acted as contested territory in the politics of the 1970s. After the first RAR Carnival, rock venues became targets for extremist right-wing violence. The right-wing National Front was blamed for an arson attack on Acklam Hall, a site that had served as a flashpoint for the Notting Hill Carnival riots just two years earlier. They also bombed the Albany Theatre in Deptford, near the site of the Battle of Lewisham, where many of those who would come to be involved in the Anti-Nazi League organized a cross-racial confrontation against the National Front in the summer of 1977. Following these confrontations, RAR chose the park on the edge of Brixton as a site because of its position in the heart of Afro-Caribbean London. The National Front did not have as strong of a presence in South London as it did in the East and Southeast. However, they were planning to run a candidate in the local upcoming elections. Interviews with attendees in Walls Coming Down, an anthology history of Rock Against Racism and Red Wedge, a musical movement that came out of it later, indicate that in retrospect, many attendees and Brixton residents found the idea of thousands of white Londoners walking down Brixton Road not normal. One attendee said, quote, "It did not feel normal." It showed a level of discomfort felt by some local residents with large crowds of young white people coming to a part of London that did not often see such gatherings. Residents wondered, would they bring trouble? And then there were rumors that if the punk band Sham 69, who had been scheduled to play, had shown up as they intended, then their rabid Nazi fan base would show up and attempt to ruin the event. Ultimately, this led Sham 69 to withdraw reluctantly from the program, and their Nazi fan base did not show up. Beyond the fans, though, there were still fears that right-wing extremists might show up. Organizers had feared a big rumor that the National Front was coming to attack the carnival. However, they did not do that. Instead, they launched a counter-event in East London. They had hoped to dampen the carnival's atmosphere by staging a march in the East End to terrorize the local Bangladeshi community, which was reeling after a recent murder by white extremists of a Bangladeshi young man. Instead, RAR and Anti-Nazi League leaders tried to counter the demonstrations in the East End by loading up coaches from the Brixton event and sending counter demonstrators to the East End to fight back against the NF. The East End's distance from Brixton presented a logistical obstacle which hindered some of the moves to block the National Front. One leader lamented, quote, "Collectively, we bungled it." But still, even with the logistical difficulties in the East End, the show in Brixton was considered widely successful in building solidarities and showcasing diverse musical talents. Left-wing activist David Widgery described the day as joyous, and Misty in the Roots, one of the reggae bands at the carnival, claimed that Brockwell Park was transferred to the Jamaican mountains. Further, it demonstrated a willingness of young people from across London and beyond to travel to one of London's blackest areas to express solidarity with anti-racist causes, especially when music was involved. In the years that followed, Brixton's nightlife scene grew, and Londoners from across the city traveled down the recently extended Victoria Line to give it a visit. In the late 1970s, very few rock acts had been playing the neighborhood, but the growth of venues like the Brixton Academy in the decade that followed made it a key site for artists associated with left-wing and anti-racist causes, ranging from the Smiths, back when the Smiths were left-wing, to Fela Kuti and the Clash. For more, please consider listening to my Placecast about the Brixton Academy.